Hi everyone. We're going to be wrapping up the last part of chapter 9, and so this should be a pretty short video. Okay, so previously we've been talking about crossing over, and there was a very smart scientist who decided to use this data of the crossing over to try to map out the genes on the chromosome. And so he made the assumption that genes that are further apart on the chromosome, because they're farther from each other, there's more likelihood that there's going to be crossing over and genetic recombination. Whereas if they're closer together, they're more likely to be linked, and so they're not going to have as much crossing over. And so, based on that, he used the recombination frequencies to kind of figure out where genes were. And this right here is just a picture that kind of shows that. He said that these two genes, body color and wing size for the fly, were more likely to be further apart because there's 17% recombination seen in the offspring, whereas eye color only was seen to have like 8 to 9% variation or genetic recombination, and so he assumed that eye color would be in the middle between these two. And so what he did right here, this is called a linkage map. A linkage map is a diagram of the relative gene positions. And so our technology has gotten a lot more advanced, but this was kind of the beginnings of trying to map out all of the genes on chromosomes. Okay, transitioning now into sex chromosomes. Remember in the past we talked about something called autosomes and versus sex chromosomes. So autosomes are just all the chromosomes in your body, and you only have one set of sex chromosomes that determine your sex. So either you're going to be female or male. Usually these are X or Y, especially for humans. Humans, XX is female, and then XY is male. So each gamete like the gametes from each parent will only donate one of the sex chromosomes. So either X or Y. For female, they can only donate X. For male, they can donate X or Y. So the actual way that sex is determined is a little bit complicated. On humans, they found isolated like a gene called the SRY gene, and it's on the Y chromosome, and they've noticed that it triggers the testes development, and so that's one that they can specifically say relates to sex. But there's a lot of different factors that relate to hormones and your facial features and things like that, which they're still trying to figure out. This picture right here kind of shows that there's a whole spectrum of how your chromosomes can be, or your genes can manifest into features that look more male or more female. It's different for all different types of organisms, though. Grasshoppers and roaches have a totally different system, like they have either XX or the absence of an X chromosome actually leads to the grasshoppers being male. Ants and bees, they actually don't even have sex chromosomes. It's based on the number of chromosomes that they have. So I think females are diploids. So if you have more chromosomes, then you're likely to be female. And then turtles, actually, what gender they're assigned, or what sex, sorry, they're assigned, is determined by environmental factors like temperature. So when it's kind of hot, when they're being incubated and born, they actually end up becoming male. Okay, sex-linked genes. Sex-linked genes are just genes that are located on sex chromosomes. And so some of the genes that are on sex chromosomes obviously help determine like what sex you'll be, but there are also genes on these sex chromosomes that are unrelated to your gender or your sex. Notice here in this picture that the X chromosome, which is this one, is much larger than the Y chromosome. Yeah, the Y chromosome is so small. And so what that means is that the X chromosome has a lot more genes on it. And so there's a lot of like diseases and just general like traits that will be found on this X chromosome rather than the Y chromosome. And so they found that X-linked recessive traits are easier to find on males than females, which makes sense, right? Because if you look at this diagram, this is just an example. Let's say you have a sex-linked recessive gene that's on the X chromosome, and you start off with a heterozygous mother for it and just a completely normal father for the eye color. Recessive is white and dominant is red. You'll find that all of the daughter cells, all of the daughter offspring will all be red-eyed because Because for daughters, for the females to manifest this recessive trait, they have to have 2 recessive X chromosomes. And so because they're only getting 1 from the mom, then they will all exhibit just the dominant trait. Whereas for the males, they only get 1 X chromosome. So as soon as they get 1 recessive X chromosome, they will manifest the recessive trait. And so here 50% of the males will actually have the recessive white eyes. Here's this is a recessive one. So these are just general patterns you'll notice with sex-linked kinds of inheritance. Usually, as we said, it's more likely to be found in males than females for X-linked recessive traits. And this is because, he only needs 1 X chromosome, whereas women, they get 2 X chromosomes, and both of those X's have to be recessive for the female to show that trait. A lot of times you'll notice that mothers tend to be carriers, so they themselves won't manifest any symptoms. They tend to be heterozygous, but then they can pass on their genes to their sons, and the sons will inherit the disease about half the time. This actually was a big problem for royalty, because a lot of the royal families would kind of intermarry, like they would try to keep the bloodlines pure, and so they would marry like their cousins or their brothers and sisters, and so you would see a lot of these sex-linked diseases pop up in their sons. This is just a pedigree chart, and just to make sure you understand like how to read these, you'll notice that circles are always going to be female, squares are male, and if it's half colored, usually only the circles are half colored because that means that it's heterozygous. That means that these circles are females who are carriers of the disease, the X-linked recessive disease. When it's light colored, these are all signs that it's just a normal. There's no manifestation of the recessive trait, but the darker colored, fully solid colored shapes are the ones that mean that they have it. And notice that it's much more likely to see the recessive trait manifest on the sons. The only way that a daughter could be fully manifested is if she has a mom who's heterozygous or recessive, and then the father also is demonstrating the trait. All right, thank you so much for watching. Bye.